This is the framework of how Molodia Podgooi will work. But before we can delve into it, let us look at how poor white South Africans were empowered in the past. In 1932, the Carnegie Corporation conducted a commission to study the then white poverty in South Africa. Before the study, white poverty had long been the subject of the debate in South Africa, and poor whites the subject of church, scholarly and state attention. White poverty became a social problem in the early 1900s, when many whites were dispossessed of land and as a result of Anglo-Boer War, especially in the Cape and in Transvaal. It was uncommon to find whites who were driven into wage labor, managing a lifestyle similar to that of African laborers. As white proletarianization proceeded and racial integration began to emerge as an urban phenomenon, white poverty attracted attention and concern. In the 1870s, for example, a colonial visitor to Grahamstown wrote that miscellaneous heads of whites and blacks lived together in the most promiscuous manner imaginable. According to one memorandum sent to Frederick Keppel, then president of Carnegie, there was little doubt that if the natives were given full economic opportunity, the more competent among them would soon outstrip the less competent whites. Keppel's support for the project of creating the report was motivated by his concern with the maintenance of existing racial boundaries. The preoccupation of the Carnegie Corporation with the so-called poor white problem in South Africa was at least in part the outcome of similar misgivings about the state of poor whites in the American South. The study recommended that employment sanctuaries be formed for poor white workers and that poor white workers should substitute native black workers in most skilled aspects of the economy. Authors of the report suggested that something must be done about poor white problem in South Africa. Otherwise, there would be racial deterioration and interracial relationships would be the results. As a result, the strict limit and laws for black South Africans were put in place in order for whites to promote racial purity and economic empowerment, and to encourage maintenance of white supremacy. So we need to take note that the key factor about the poor white problem is that it was solved. The problem itself might not be identical to the poverty that is experienced by black people today. So, in order for citizens of South Africa to solve their social problems today in a manner that is not racial, we need to be clear about how are we going to solve those problems and monitor the progress that we make, which is exactly what the podcast is created for. The framework. Planning is the identification of our goals and problems. These goals are categorized into short-term goals, which comprises of consumption of moral entertainment, the need to learn financial literacy, feminism, civic, ethical and voter education, self-reliance, and health services. Medium-term goals are the objectives of religions, the importance of a family, social cohesion, relationships, and amateur sport. Long-term goals are mass economic empowerment, the development of school education, the ownership of means of production and property. Organizing is the allocation of various resources that we have as citizens. The resources that we have as citizens are smartphones, mobile data, time, parental rules, and religion. We need to identify all the resources that are at our disposal. Not knowing the power of the resources we have is the biggest mistake we can make. As organized society is very essential in the process of achieving goals in a community or country. Since 1994, we never bothered ourselves about being organized. So this is the perfect time to start. It took the union government 22 years to solve poor white problem in South Africa. Parental roles. Parents must divide their roles and responsibilities to ensure that children's needs are fully met. This thing of unreasonable single parenting is wrong. It jeopardizes the future and the upbringing of children. Time. Time is the most essential resource because it cannot be compensated. Moreover, there is a period for everything, and if that period is missed, it might be impossible to regain it. Time wasted will never return, as they say. Instead, it increases the future workload, or else results into absolute failure. Religion. The function of a religion in our society is lost. That can be shown by the growing prosperity religions. The purpose of a religion is to create order and provide the right guidance. Smartphones. Smartphones are virtual countries that have given all their citizens a freedom of information and a right of social interaction. Gone are the days of messengers. We need to start using smartphones in a manner that is more useful and productive in our lives. Internet. The internet and social media platforms are the enablers of all the freedoms and rights promised by virtual countries. And lastly, mobile data. Data is the universal currency of all the virtual countries. I agree that in South Africa mobile data is expensive, but we need to try to use a big percentage of our mobile data doing the right things, more especially in accessing the information that we need in order to achieve our goals and solve our problems. One other thing that we need is leadership. The primary role of leadership is to guide people in the right direction. Leaders are given the opportunity to keep people organized and ensure that things are done in a way that is in line with the goals of a society or country. It is clear that since 1994, we lacked good leadership. That is shown by how lost we are. For example, we do not even know our responsibilities as citizens, or our responsibilities are not emphasized. Instead, we were promised promises of promise that led to a bunch of empty promises and nothing. Apart from leadership, we need control, which is the monitoring of our progress. This can be made through constructive criticism and by facing each other's mistakes. This is the right time to do away with oversensitivity. South Africa is not USA. The goals that are mentioned in this framework and those listed in the Constitution document will be dealt with in more detail in the near future. Listeners are also encouraged to contribute in content creation and also by audio comments. The reason why we prefer audio over text messages is to make it easier to use this platform even when working. We encourage you to download the voice notes and so that you can replay them whenever you want. This platform is an alternative to misleading mainstream national talk radio channels. This is the framework of how Molodia Podgooi will work. But before we can delve into it, let us look at how poor white South Africans were empowered in the past. In 1932, the Carnegie Corporation conducted a commission to